right, so let's go ahead and get back in the trial. So yesterday, or on day 2, we got to hear from some of the police officers that responded to the scene. We got to hear from an amazing officer that not only responded to the scene, but administered first aid to Kyle. And then they were able to get him to the hospital. We saw a testimony from one of the paramedics as well. Now we're going to get back into more witness testimony. We're going to hear from the military veteran that actually was the first one to get to Kyle and kind of help him when he saw him laying on the ground. And then we're actually going to hear from another witness that's going to be interesting here moving forward. So y'all let me know what you think about this and make sure you like the video on your way in. Here we go.
To the left of the judge. And if you could approach kind of around the corner there, face the judge, and remain standing for your oath.
All right. Good morning, sir. Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? You may be seated. Just please keep your voice up so everyone can hear you. Counsel, you may inquire.
Thanks, sir. Can you state your name and spell your name for the court record, please?
Sure. John Freese. Last name is Freese.
And what do you do for work?
I'm an emergency physician.
Where?
At Frisbee Memorial Hospital primarily, but also hospitals in New Hampshire and Virginia.
Understood. Can you give the jury just a brief summation of your professional training and experience?
I've been an emergency physician for 25 years. I trained at Indianapolis, the Indiana University Emergency Medicine program back in 2000. When I graduated from there, I did my postdoctoral fellowship in EMS, or emergency medical services, at the New York City Fire Department.
Nice.
Spent 10 years as a medical director with the fire department, was chief medical director, and oversaw all the ambulances in New York City for that decade, during which time I also worked clinically. And then for the last 12 years, I've been primarily here in New Hampshire and now also Virginia.
Thank you. I think that suffices. Look, do you remember, with the benefit perhaps of reviewing some records, treating a patient named Kyle Violet?
Yes.
And my understanding, if I could just briefly summarize, you saw him, but he then was transferred to 2 other hospitals.
That's correct.
You know, given the nature of his injuries, can you just give us a thumbnail, an estimate of how many physicians do you think treated him over the course of his 3 admissions to various hospitals?
It was dozens.
And so I'll cut to the chase. You know, by agreement with Attorney Sisti, we've asked you to kind of come in and summarize the treatment evaluations from each 3 of the hospitals, so that we don't bring in dozens of physicians. Is that how you understood your testimony today?
It is.
And have you had the benefit then of reviewing treatment notes, summaries and image notes from the other hospitals?
Yes, I have.
And based on your training and experience, notwithstanding the fact that you didn't actually do the treatment down in Boston, do you feel comfortable sharing with the jury a summary and an explanation of the treatment and injuries?
I do.
Great. Then let's get started.
And just so the record's clear, this is without objection, correct?
No, this is actually an agreement we made like a week ago. So
Very good. Just
it's going.
wanted the record clear. Thank you. Continue.
To understand, it could take days to talk to 13, 14 different...
Of course, the court understands. I just wanted the record clear. Just wanted the record clear.
Dr. Freese, do you recall when Mr. Violet was admitted?
It was April 4th of 2022.
And I'm going to refer you to my reference note of page 427. Actually, this may be faster if I approach, Your Honor.
Of course, please.
Can you share with the jury, you said he was admitted to what facility?
Initially to Frisbee, and I misspoke. I said 2022. It was 2024.
In the best case. So, do you recall the time when he was admitted and discharged?
He was admitted to Frisbee at...
Counsel, I'm referring to page 427 of the notes. I'll direct your attention to the 4th paragraph.
At 10:30 p.m.
And then can you indicate when he was discharged?
Yeah, at 11:13.
So about 45 minutes he's at Frisbee, correct?
That's correct.
And if you could summarize the evaluation, the injury notes, the triaging notes from his arrival at Frisbee. How did he appear to you?
So when he arrived, he was anxious, he was pale, and he was confused, as most people are when their blood pressure is critically low, as his was.
Yeah, I can imagine.
His initial evaluation demonstrated a number of gunshot wounds, and his initial treatment for stabilization, given his very low blood pressure and the severity of his wounds, was to secure his airway. So he was paralyzed, sedated, and intubated or placed on a ventilator. He had a cordis introducer placed, which is a very large IV catheter that was placed into his femoral artery to allow for the rapid administration of blood products. And he had a chest tube placed, a large tube It goes into the chest cavity to allow his left lung to re-expand.
Very well. I'm going to direct your
Yikes,
attention
he was
to,
messed up.
Our discovery note at 446 should be on the bottom right-hand page of your notes.
Okay.
There appears to be an admission summary. Can you indicate the number of gunshot wounds that Frisbee was able to identify?
It appeared to be a total of 6 gunshot wounds.
And can you briefly describe them to the jury?
Sure, there were 2 to the left chest. One was just below the clavicle. One was over the left lateral chest wall. One was to the lower abdomen, which was just inside of the hip bone, the front of your hip here. The next was to the left hemiscrotum, so just adjacent to the penis and somewhat involving the penis and the scrotum. And then there was one to each buttock.
You would describe that the pelvic, the abdominal wound was anterior. That's actually on the front side.
Correct.
Okay. And behind that was a gunshot wound to his left buttock. Is that correct?
Correct.
This goes on to indicate the sort of the level of concern. What was the?
It's a lot of times to get shot.
Condition.
He was critically ill.
And would you consider critically ill to be life-threatening?
Imminently.
And so you had made some additional notes that I don't understand. The patient was notably, and can you share that word, tachycardic?
The patient was notably tachycardic or had an elevated heart rate and markedly hypotensive, meaning his blood pressure was incredibly low, with an initial systolic blood pressure in the 50s.
And then what did you do in response to that, if anything?
So, as mentioned, he had the cordis introducer replaced, which was the large bore IV. He had 2 units of blood that were initially ordered. The intubation, placing him on the ventilator, like I mentioned, and then immediately after the intubation and placing him on a ventilator, the tube thoracostomy, or the chest tube, was placed in his left chest.
I noticed that the notation uses the term a massive transfusion protocol. What is that?
Most hospitals have a transfusion protocol that requires the administration of multiple blood products in the case of a critically ill patient who appears to have significant bleeding. So it includes the administration of not only red blood cells, but also products to help to replace the factors that allow you to form a blood clot, so that you have all aspects of your blood being replaced.
There's a notation on 427 that indicates at 2240 PRCP Unit 1 and then Unit 2 both transfused within 10 minutes. Is that notable to you?
Yes, it's a rapid infusion, as we would expect for a critically ill trauma patient.
And so after making these assessments, what do you actually do at Frisbee Memorial?
So like most smaller hospitals or critical access hospitals, the role of a smaller hospital is to stabilize the patient so that they're able to survive transfer to a tertiary facility or a higher level of care, or in this case, 2 higher levels of care. So our goal was to maintain his blood pressure, maintain his airway, improve his breathing, get in touch with a trauma surgeon at a local hospital, in this case Portsmouth.
Yeah, right, she's right.
And did they agree to receive
That's a fact.
this patient, Mr. Violet, at the Portsmouth Hospital?
They did. Dr. Cromer accepted the patient.
In fact, was this situation so acute that you essentially held off on doing other diagnostics that you would have normally done?
Yes, and that's standard for someone who's this critically injured.
And so you've indicated to us that at 23:13, he actually left for Portsmouth.
Correct.
And I want to then turn your attention to the documents that appear to be generated from Portsmouth, which begin at 468 of our discovery.
Okay.
What I first see is what appears to be a summary of a CT scan report.
Yes.
And can you please explain the observations or the diagnostics that are referred on 469, the following page, concerning stomach and bowel?
With regard to the stomach and bowel, there were a few punctate metallic foreign bodies within the lumen of the stomach, which were felt to represent bullet fragments that had been swallowed by the patient. There were no evidence of any bowel injury on the CT scan itself.
And so at this point, they hadn't yet diagnosed perforation of his bowel that was eventually they performed surgery on.
Correct.
Can you?
That could have been really
return
bad
to
if they didn't catch it.
Give us a summary of the findings for his lungs.
For his lungs, there was the chest tube that we had placed at Frisbee that terminated near the lung apex, or at the top of the lung. There was fluid within the chest tube itself, which was the blood that was coming from that tube. And there was a small left-sided hemopneumothorax, which is a combination of blood and air that remained in the chest even after re-expansion of the lung with that chest tube.
There's a heading called osseous, and soft tissue chest. Can you summarize those findings?
The radiologist noted that there were several small metallic fragments in the left pectoralis muscle or the left chest muscle here, that there was a larger metallic fragment that was just in front of or anterior to the first rib, and then subcutaneous air or air beneath the skin that would be expected after someone had both gunshot wounds to the chest and a chest tube placed.
Look, in that area that we're talking about, can you share with us whether there are either critical nerve, veins, arteries, other organs that you would be concerned about for major trauma in that particular area?
Yes, there are, everything that keeps you alive sits right there. Your heart is just to the left of your sternum, primarily. The aorta, which is the artery that carries all of your blood to all of your body, leaves the heart and curves to the left and descends, as well as going up through your carotid arteries. The lung, obviously, and in this case, the artery that surrounds each one of your ribs, which by itself can also be a life-threatening injury.
This report has a heading called reproductive. Can you just briefly share with us the observations and diagnosis?
Yeah, they note that there is some subcutaneous air, so again, air beneath the skin within the left hemiscrotum or the left half of the scrotum. They were able to describe this as an entry wound that was adjacent to the left base of the penis, and then some small metallic foreign bodies beneath the skin that were noted, as well as several smaller metallic foreign bodies within the scrotum itself. And they were not able to visualize in this study the patient's left testicle.
Understood.
I mean, Kyle's lucky to be alive.
There is a
Seriously.
notation at, looks like 469, concerning the, again, this is soft tissue, tissue structures. Quote, there appears to be a potential exit wound at the skin surface of the anterior left lower quadrant of the abdomen.
Yes.
Just want to show you, if I may approach your arm.
Of course.
Counsel, these are the photos.
Your Honor, these are full exhibits, and I have no objection.
Very good. The record will so reflect these are full exhibits.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Stage 19, and just ask if you could explain kind of what you see.
So this is, by definition, a critically ill patient, as evidenced by the fact that they're on a ventilator. The patient appears to
on a
be his
ventilator,
left
too.
chest tube
Dang.
still in place from what I can see from the lines. He has an oral gastric tube in place, which is a tube that drains the stomach of the gastric contents, the stomach contents that you produce every day, even if you don't eat, and multiple monitors.
I had originally asked you about the observation or the statement describing an exit wound in the abdomen. I'm going to show you stage 21 and ask if that is consistent with the evaluation that was written.
It would appear to match.
And as an exit wound, does it make sense that that would correlate with what I'm going to show you in stage exhibit 23, which, if you could just describe that to the jury.
So this is a wound that appears to be on the high portion of the left buttock, relatively large in size, and with no surrounding skin changes.
And if that were the entry wound, would that make sense to you right away that the abdominal wound was back the texture?
It certainly could be.
And so the image that we see in 21, all located kind of on the front of the body, was actually inflicted from behind it.
Yes, it appears so.
Do you recall evaluating initially the gunshot wound to his face?
Yes, I do.
And I'm going to show you stage 20 and ask if you can identify that and describe it.
I guess you don't forget a victim like that.
Yes, this appeared to be a gunshot wound or a penetrating wound to the jaw or the mandible that was just beneath the jawbone of the mandible here on the side of the neck.
And do you recall the consequences of the result of that particular gunshot?
It appeared that he had significant intraoral injuries as well. And I recall from the note being able to even palpate bullet fragments in the area of the jaw.
Dang.
And, you know, once again, now in this area of the body, can you just tell us whether or not there are critical nerve, blood, and other potential organs very close to that?
Yeah, this is very close to your carotid artery, the main artery that sits here that feeds essentially one half of your brain. An injury to that, like most major arteries, is one you can bleed to death from within 2 to 5 minutes. And if the bullet continued further than that, you have the spinal cord and the brainstem, which allow you to live.
Dang.
At Frisbee, you can confirm that you deferred some analysis, and that includes CT scan. So is it true that you did not see the dissected portion of the carotid artery?
That's correct.
There is a brief summary on 492, if I could refer you before he is then passed on to Boston Medical Center. And at the bottom there, it seems to be a paragraph. Can you confirm that at Portsmouth they were required to provide massive transfusion, continued there?
Yes, it did.
And that the injuries were consistent with what was observed at Portsmouth, but here at Frisbee, but they add here that they now have observed an external carotid injury, complicated mandibular fracture, pulmonary hemorrhaging, and again, make note of the significance of the external carotid injury. Can you just briefly describe for the jury what they're talking about?
Yeah, so what they found on the CT scans that were performed there was that the carotid artery, which comes up your neck and then splits into the internal carotid artery that goes to your brain and the external carotid artery that goes to your face. The external carotid artery had a sudden occlusion near its origin from the common carotid artery. So it appeared that the bullet had transected that artery.
What do you mean by transected?
Or had cut in half
Ouch.
and caused the blood flow in that artery to stop.